We have welcome, Lexi. We have a new topic, which is Basar B'Chalav, which is exciting to do something a little bit different. And we'll start with the sources. Let me just share. Maybe I'll share my screen. Okay. All right. So these are the sources I just sent out. These are the Lo Tivashel Gedi B'Chalev Imo sources. These ones I brought only one pasuk because I think it's the exact same pasuk. And so I thought but this is actually two different pasukim, which is kind of weird. It's the exact same pasuk. Lo tochlu kol nevela, and then it says Lo tivashel gedi b'chalev imo. Okay, so those are the sources, and
Can I ask you a question already?
Yeah.
What is the connection between the two halves of the first pasuk?
Reshit b'churei admatcha tavi beit Hashem Elokecha lo tivashel gedi b'chalev imo. Well, Reshit b'churei admatcha is also bikur of a gedi, right? There's also supposed to bring your first goat. But lo tivashel.
This would be, yeah.
Yeah, Joe, what do you say?
You should. I know it's worth seeing the Bechor Shor there. He actually thinks that the pshat in the first case or the first two cases in Shemot is different than the pshat in the Devarim case. He thinks there it's not about eating; it's about tivashel is to allow to mature, to allow your gedi to mature.
Like stay on the vine.
Yeah, before you offer it as a korban to Hashem, and he thinks in the Devarim different prohibition that's lo tivashel.
What does he do?
Right.
What you're saying is lo tivashel gedi b'chalev imo. It really means like lo takriv gedi when he's still sucking his mother's milk.
Well, I think he thinks it's actually it's don't allow it to nurse for too long before you bring it to the. That's the way he puts it. Is don't allow it to nurse for too long. Don't delay bringing your korban. Say again.
Lo yit gadal or lo
yagil. Exactly. Yeah. So
his
Kuni brings it also.
What you're saying about the Bechor Shor. So most of the other Rishonim have this emphasis on, like, we say Lo Tivashel Gedi 3 times, and that's how we get Achila, Bishul, and Hana'ah. Does he still go with that? And this is just Peshat that he wants to be like, but actually,
yeah. If you look at it as Perush on Devarim, he says it's brought 3 times because it's the Isur Hana'ah, Isur Bishul, Isur Achila, right? So but it's a very Tosafist thing to bring both Peshat and the Drash. So
yeah, well, that's great.
Although Rav Nachum, Although Rav Nachum, what you said about Lo Tivashel Gedi B'Chalev, which does connect more with it, maybe in another way, is the Ethiopian understanding, I think, of the pasuk, that it's like don't cook and eat your gedi when it's still young enough to be suckling. But anyway.
That's
wait for them to mature. Yeah.
Right, because B'Chalev could mean like when it's in its mother's milk, when it's still in the milking stage, in the milk kind of period. I don't know. But I mean, that would be a very different reading, possible. Yeah, pshat, it can always be different from the halachic reading of a pasuk. The Rambam talks about that more in Nebuchi. He gives examples where he says, what the words mean, and then he says, but I know that's not the way the rabbis understand it.
Classic Ayin Tacharayin, where Rambam more Nebuchi is like, it looks like it really means you should take out somebody's eye, right. But then I'm not talking about like that. That's has nothing to do with like the words of the Talmud. Yes, obviously we paskin that way. Shot of the pasuk is that
right, which is very controversial, but that's what I was referring to. That he's willing to say there's a rabbinic meaning, and then there's like a thought meaning without any oral tradition. Okay. And then we have these mishnahs. I don't know if I want to spend that much time on this, but it's what I thought is interesting is that we have, well, let's just read this Mishnah. We have Rabbi Akiva here, but I want to get to Rabbi Akiva. It's important to keep this Mishnah clear. Basar behemoth tahora, bichalav behemoth tahora aser. So when you have both animals are kosher animal types, presumably they don't have to be shechted properly. It could be nevela, but it has to be a tahor animal. Then it's aser. Aser levashel, aser bahana. It's aser levashel and aser bahana. Presumably also le'echol. That's a kind of hana'ah. Basar behema tahora, b'chalav behema tameya. Basar behema tameya, b'chalav behema tahora, mutter levashel, umutter bahana. So you see that the Reisha has really taught those two because it wanted to teach the Seifa where those two are mutter. And it's really not even talking about eating because actually all of them would be usher in eating because the one case because basar b'chalav and the second case because it's behema tameya. So that's also obviously usher. So we're not really talking about eating. We're talking about this two other parts, hana'ah and bishul. Rabbi Akiva Omer Chaya v'of, which of course Chaya v'of, even though Chaya actually has milk, but it's not like a gedi because it's not a domestic animal. V'of, which doesn't have milk, Eina minatora. They're not aser minatora to cook or to eat after they've been cooked. Not clear. They're not aser minatora, presumably to cook and to have hana'ah from. Shene'amar lo tivashel gedi b'chadev imo shosha pa'amim prat l'chaya v'of l'behemet tamei. So he says, best like behemet tamei, the Tanna Kama holds. I say also chaya v'of. So it seems to imply that the Tanna Kama holds that that's a big question. The normal way to read this would be to say that Rabbi Akiva is arguing on the Tanna Kama and saying, I add to also a heter, like also chayav v'of. But that would be kind of weird. What the Tanna Kama is saying that a chicken is aser in a Torah, but a behemoth tameya is not. It's kind of a weird position to hold. And actually, I think that's not what. I don't think you can learn it that way. And I think there's a rule, although I don't know how 100% this rule is. It says there's a difference between Rabbi Akiva Omer and Omer Rabbi Akiva. I think. In other words, I don't know if has anybody ever heard such a thing. In other words, well, I don't know. Maybe that's not a good proof. But I think that the only
who look into the whole Omer blank or the Omer as to determining when they're being cholek on things that have been said versus when they're adding on. But obviously, at times it's pretty pashut.
I think here it's pashut that he is adding on. He's not arguing because it would be a very weird position to hold that it would be aser min Torah a chicken or but maybe. Okay, Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer Ne'emar lo tochal kol nevela v'ne'emar lo tivashel gedi b'chalevi mo et she'asur mishum nevela asur levashel b'chalav of she'asur mishum nevela. So you might say of, which could be a nevela. You have to shecht it. If you don't shecht it, yachol yeh asur levashel b'chalav. Talmud lomar b'chalav imo yatsa of she'ein lo chalav imo. So what case is Rabbi Yossi being more machmir about?
The chaya.
No. Just the chaya, right? Yeah. Just the chaya, right? He's saying chaya has a din of nevela. So therefore, from this pasuk in Devarim, I'm going to connect. I'm going to say it also is aser in chal with cooking, which kind of is a nice position because they're all kosher meat. Rabbi Akiva is kind of a weird position. You can have like a nice steak cooked with milk as long as it's from a deer, and you're okay. And Rabbi Yossi says, no. Deer is just like any other meat, even though he agrees that it's not like a gedi. It doesn't fit into the category of gedi, but it gets pulled in because of this other pasuk of nevela. Is that a good explanation? Comments? Disagreements? Okay. So we have this machloket. I think Rabbi Akiva is probably agreeing with the Tanakh. In other words, he's just bringing a source for it. Now, what I thought is can I skip this next Gemara? Well, maybe I don't. Let's see. This is to teach us the Yishlach Gedi Izim. In other words, when we have Gedi with Izim, then in other words, why do we need to specify Gedi Izim? It must imply that Gedi includes other possible things, because I need to specify which kind of Gedi, a Gedi Izim. So therefore, there could be a Gedi of a cow. And that's basically right, a filu parava rachel, a cow or a sheep. And then so that's that Gemara. That's that Gemara, which basically is just saying that we can. That's sort of how the rabbis do their original statement in this Mishnah, where they say it's any behema tahora. It's from this Gemara in Chulin. Then I brought this other place in Chulin where Amar Shmuel Gedi l'Ravot et Chalev Gedi l'Ravot et Meita, which is kind of weird. Like I would have thought that a Meita, which is an Avela, right? Or I suppose Gedi l'Ravot et Shlil, all these things. Gedi l'Hotzi et Adam. He has all these drushes on Gedi l'Hotzi et Atmeya. All these drushes on the word Gedi, why it says Gedi. Seems like we're very interested in this repetition of Gedi. And then what I think is the most interesting is this example, Rabbi Yishmael. Now, Rabbi Yishmael says, Lo tivashel Gedi b'chalev imo shlosha pa'amim, echad le'isur achila, echad le'isur hana'a, echad le'isur bishul. So that's the drasha that we get, these three prohibitions, also from Gedi. So it's almost like, how can you get two different drushas from the same, two different sets of three from one set of three? We already said that it's Gedi, Shlosha Pa'amim, Chaya of Behema Tmeya. So first of all, I think it's very interesting that it's Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Akiva, and we all know that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael are two different schools of Tanaim. So it's almost like Rabbi Akiva has his drasha, and then Rabbi Yishmael has the other drasha where he uses it in a different way. But in halacha, we're going to combine them all, right? We're going to use everything. We're going to take everything together. Anyone have a?
Wait, are you saying that
No. I mean, does anyone have any interesting questions or something to comment on this Gemara here?
I mean, I think the Gemara in Kufri Gimel, right, plays that all right. Hatlata Gedi Kativ Anan Shita Darshina, right? It's like, which is just one of many places where we have a lot of, but I have this like thought that like Chazal have a very kind of like, a deep tradition of like what the rules are around this, but there's not enough psukim to kind of sustain all those traditions in the sense of like trying to find the drasha for each of them. And that's what they're trying to work on there. So they know that you can eat this, you can't eat that, but they're trying to figure out, well, how do we rederive all of this tradition we have from actual pasukim? So.
I mean, this is also where it helps when, like, again, according to the way Shmuel presents it, you need those three to exclude the the things that are similar enough to a Gedi, but don't fall under its, auspices.
That are kind of like things you don't normally eat. I guess that's the category, right?
Well, but as in and like having the not the debate Rabbi Ishmael, the thing that comes up, I forget it was in the Chulin Kafiyad Gimel, right? The idea of like, oh, actually, if we can learn out from other psukim, just that Gedi Stam, what is Gedi Stam? Gedi Stam is like domesticated mammals, unless it says like Gedi Izim. And so once you have that, then the 3 psukim are free to do the classic drash that we see carried on of the like bishul achila hana'ah, right? Because we have the gedi, the things that are not oaf, not chaya, not da already covered just by the term gedi.
In other words, I think what you're saying is that the fact that gedi is brought, you're almost saying like Rav Yos, like we bring in gedi in another way other than using the repetition.
I'm saying, right, that like
the gedi can be used to bring in like a behemoth, like a cow. Like, how do we learn a cow in the end?
Right, that basically you like to know if you look at the drash of the Amar Bielzer, Amar Kra, the thing about how gedi stam means like goats and rams and whatever.
Right.
Then we know on a positive sense that gedi is associated with other domesticated mammals and not with other things, right?
So we don't need, you're saying we don't need to say prat. Very nice. What you're saying is we don't need to say prat le oaf and
right, because
chaya, because gedi, you never say gedi of a deer, you're saying. It has to be gedi of some herd animal. But you might say gedi of a behemoth tamea. Well, actually, not really, because the behemoth tameas are all pretty much not herd animals, right? Like a donkey or something. Camels, I don't know about camels. Yavni, I think camels are loners. Yavni?
Could you explain again how Rabbi Akiva's drash works? Where, like, why we're using, is that I'm confused by using a repetition to exclude things, I guess. That using a repetition was usually to add things on. There's no, right, there isn't a...
Well, it's almost like the joke. I mean, maybe that's what's in my back of my mind. You know, the joke I told you before, I think. Moshe.
Yeah.
In other words, gedi. Oh, you mean chaya? No, gedi. Okay, no chaya. So you mean oaf? No, gedi. You mean oaf? You mean behemoth tamea? No, gedi. Oh, okay. Only domestic animals that are kosher. That's the way I understood.
Like there weren't, like if there had been a few, okay. Like, yeah, I guess I figured, yeah, okay.
In other words, it's specifying gedi dafka. So there's dafka things that are being pushed away by saying gedi. It's gedi and not other things you would have thought.
Right. The first time you say gedi, it's to say gedi and not
behemoth. This other Gemara that I brought is a substitute way of learning it from Tamar. Shlach Yehuda gedi izim.
Right.
And once we have that, afilu power of a
but we still have the statement from Rabbi Akiva.
We have the statement so that we can almost actually throw it away because we're going like it's weird, like we're paskening like Rabbi Yishmael, right? And in fact, I mean that's very nice because if we look at the Shulchan Aruch or the tour, open up your tour for a minute. Anyway, you should have it open because we'll be going there soon. It says in the beginning of the tour, Isser b'chalav kativ, lo tivashel gedi b'chalev imo, v'ne'amar shlosha pa'amim b'torah, echad l'isser bishul, echad l'isser achila, ve'echad l'isser hana'ah. So that's the drasha of Rabbi Yishmael. That's not the drasha of Rabbi Akiva, right? He could have said shlosha pa'amim to tell you not chaya. So I was just bothered by that. Like, why, since we're using both of these drushes, we could assume, then why did it choose this one and not the other one to mention? They're both relevant. And I guess the best answer is what we've just said now, that really we are using this Gemara. We can use this Gemara here. Vayishlach Yehuda et gedi izim, and that already tells us that it's power of a Rachel, it's all of the things, and therefore it's not a chicken and it's not a behemoth tamea, which, are not herded. I think the Rambam says that. The Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim in the last section says that the reason why the animals that are kosher is because they're the easiest ones to collect, because they're herdable. And God doesn't, want to make our lives difficult. So he doesn't say you can, he doesn't forbid us to eat the herding animals and say you can only eat deer. Well, I mean, deer actually he's talking about korbanot. There he's talking about korbanot, why the korbanot are from those animals. Anyway, this is not Moreh Nevuchim class. Although it could be. Okay, then let's get into this Rambam. Wait, what is this Ran that I brought? Ein Omrim. Yeah, this is trying to prove, this is a later topic. We'll skip that for now. This is trying to prove that this is discussing the question of whether sli, that's a big question, whether it's sli, roasting is also in the category of bishul, of the bishul of the Torah. Here, let's skip here. Here, Yavni, why don't you read this Rambam here? Gimel and Dalet. I think we can just read Gimel and Dalet. Yeah. Okay, Yavni?
Did you see me?
Yeah, Yavni, can you read the Rambam here, Gimel?
Sorry, it cut out. My internet isn't the greatest
We hear you.
at the moment. Ein asur min haTorah, אלא בשר בהמה טהורה בחלב בהמה טהורה, שנאמר לא תבשל גדי בחלב אמו. וגדי הוא כולל ולד השור, ולד השה, ולד העז, עד שיפרוט ויאמר גדי עזים. ולא נאמר גדי בחלב אמו, אלא שדיבר הכתוב בהווה.
So there you go. He's using that drush. He's not using the Rabbi Akiva. He's clearly using the drasha of about Yehuda sending forth the Gedi Izim, and he includes pretty much everything we need to know. Well, what about the only problem is? Yeah, okay, fine. I guess I was thinking about Chaya. I'm just always thinking about the wild animals, but yeah, okay. So that also excludes the wild animals. So it's not like Rabbi Yossi. Yep. It's not like Rabbi Yossi, who says wild animals are also included, right? This drasha only works. You see, the Mishnah is very beautiful with Rabbi Akiva. By bringing the Rabbi Akiva drasha, then we can exclude something. But we can say, but that list is wrong because it's 3 times. You can list anything in that list. It's just a random list of 3 things. So Rabbi Yossi can disagree with one of the things in the list. But if we would have used the drasha of Yehuda, it would have already excluded Chaya v'Of, and Rav Yossi would have had to answer. Well, how do you deal with that drasha? Rav Yossi doesn't have an answer for that drasha. Anyway, sorry, that's my own thoughts. But go on. So here we have. Here we have the basic halacha.
Unless you say that you could say Gdi Tzvi or something. But maybe you can't.
Gdi Tzvi, yeah.
Right.
I don't think
like that a young Tzvi could also be called a Gdi, just like we say a young
Right. That would be his answer. That could be his answer. He could answer like that. Yeah. Right. He can answer like that. Okay, fine. Anyway, the Rambam is paskening clearly like, well, he's not using Rabbi Akiva's drasha, but I think he's passing like the Rabbanan, with the assumption that Rabbi Akiva was only coming to explain the Rabbanan. Okay, Aval
basar behema te'or. Oh, one point about Diber HaKatuv B'Hoveh. I have this memory of seeing once in a Middle Eastern food cookbook a recipe for kid in its mother's milk. So that feels relevant.
Oh.
Aval basar behema te'ora. What?
Probably was just in milk. I doubt it required you to use its mother's milk.
But that's what the dish is called, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. That
Aval.
was my guess. Yeah. אבל בשר בהמה טהורה שבישלו בחלב בהמה טמאה, או בשר בהמה טמאה שבישלו בחלב בהמה טהורה, מותר לבשל ומותרת בהניה, ואין חייבים על אכילתו משום בשר בחלב.
Okay, so what is he saying here? So he's saying
So, yeah.
if the animal is if one of the animals, if one of the parties is a behemoth tamea, whether the milk or the meat, let's summarize it like that, then it's mutter to cook and mutter to have benefit from. Of course, it's usher to eat, but he's not talking about that because, of course, it's usher to eat because it's a behemoth tamea. Obviously, it's right because it's, but you are chayav on it because it's behemoth tamea. Okay, so he's saying there's no isser. Not only so he's saying there's no isser of bishul or hanaya in these other categories. Is he talking deraita or derabanan? Not clear. Presumably, though, you could say he's talking deraita. Although mutter, he says, see, mutter is different from ein isser. He started off, the halacha is very confusing because he says ein isser min haTorah ela v'asar, right? He starts with ein isser. And then he ends up saying mutter, which might mean even rabbinically mutter. Or he might just be saying mutter min haTorah. It's not clear.
And he also ends it talking about it's like a different thing, right? That he's talking about at the end, which is what the Magid Mishnah has an issue with, as I recall.
Right. You're saying the first part was about the Isser of eating, presumably. Ein Isser Torah El. It's not clear what he's talking about. He doesn't say Echila. He says Ein Isser Torah El B'Basar B'Chalad. Which? About what? About eating?
Right.
About eating or about cooking or what? Maybe he means it's not the nice way to read it is to say he's saying there's no issue of eating it as basar b'chalav except by this, and therefore it's mutter even to Rabbanan to cook them, but not to eat them. Right? Anyway, let's go on. B'ken basar chayav v'of. Keep going.
B'ken basar chayav v'of. בין בחלב חיה, בין בחלב בהמה, אינו אסור באכילה מן התורה. לפיכך מותר לבשלו ומותר בהניה. So similarly with chayan of, yeah, they're I don't know, should I translate it? They're, you're allowed to mix them with milk for cooking
animals. They're mutter animals, you could eat them. So if you cook them in milk, it's not an Isser Torah, and therefore you should be able to eat them from the Torah. You should be able to eat them. And then what is right? You should be able to eat them because we're in a Torah. Even if it's cooked in milk. Because there's no Isser. The meat is mutter and the milk is mutter. So and also together they're mutter. Lefichach mutter levashlam. So that's the whole problem here. What is this lefichach? Therefore, mutter levashlam. He should have said v'ken mutar levashlam. Mutar. He doesn't say, but lefichach sounds like it's different from the ken. The ken would just mean, and so too, it's mutter to do. But he's saying lefichach, and as a result of that, it's almost like he's saying, as a result of that, midirabanan, it's mutter to cook them.
Right.
Because it's saying that there's a consequence of the fact that there's no isser to eat them, and the consequence is it's mutter levashel mutter levashel. That's the way I would read it.
Right, because it is, because the Doraita, it's mutar to eat it, therefore the Rabbanan, they didn't make the Gezerah on cooking it because they're not as worried about you coming to eat it.
But this is open to debate, which we'll see. This is a big question. Joel, you want to say something? No. Okay, go on. V'asur ba'achila.
ואסור באכילה מדברי סופרים כדי שלא יפשעו העם ויבואו לידי איסור בשר בחלב של תורה ויאכלו בשר בהמה טהורה בחלב בהמה טהורה שהרי אין אין משמע כתוב אלא גדי בחלב עמו ממש. That mamash is anyway. לפיכך אסרו כל בשר בחלב.
So okay, so now you gotta
Okay, but it is but it is asur the rabbi, but like the rabbis did make it asur to eat it there in order that people wouldn't come to make a mistake and eat basar behema in chalav, basar behema Torah with chalav, because that's an isur Torah, and because the meaning of the pasuk itself is nothing but the gedi b'chalev imo mamash, which is like the most not mamash. It's not literally only a kid in its mother's milk. It's meaning a
right.
kosher, right?
So therefore, it could be
behema
misunderstood.
Torah.
It could be misunderstood. So the rabbis want to prohibit more things. So what more things did they prohibit? They prohibited also chayav ha'of, but to do what with them? To eat or to cook?
To eat.
Asur ba'achilim midivrei sofrim k'dei shelo yifsheu sheyu pesha, that they should do some sin, ha'am, v'yavo lidei isur basar b'chalav shel Torah v'yochlu basar b'hema Torah. They were worried. It almost sounds like they were only worried about you eating it. They weren't worried about you coming to cook it by mistake. But you could read it differently. Anyway, let's look at the Magid Mishnah. Here, Joel, you want to read the Magid Mishnah?
Sure. V'chein basar. This was on V'chein basar chayav ha'of, I believe, right?
Yeah. V'chein basar, right, the very beginning. V'chein basar chayav ha'of.
B'mishnah techilat ha'perek, perek kol basar, asur levashel b'chalav, chutz m'basar dagim v'chagavim. Right, Gemara keman delo k'Rebbi Akiva. So who's the Gemara says?
Wait. So this is a Gemara that I didn't give you.
Yeah.
This is a Gemara that I didn't give you, which says that
you can't cook
basar asur lebashel, even to cook the chalav, any kind of meat, except for these parv things, that fish and grasshoppers. What about chayav ha'of? It sounds like they're
it's a little begging the question. I think they're parv because the Mishnah says that you can cook them with milk.
Yeah. Yes, I know. But I'm just saying exactly. Well, actually, right, because there are more parv things. The deer is parv, actually. Right, but these two things, I'm saying these things that we think of as that these very extremely mutter things that only these two things are not asur to cook. Not talking about eating, we're talking about cooking. Kol basar asur levashel b'chalav chutz with these things. So that seems to imply that it would be asur to cook, not just to eat, deer or chicken in milk.
So good. Except we're gonna play with this a little bit. So that's right. All right. The Gemara. So when the Gemara says, "Come on, whose opinion is this Mishnah?" The Loka Rebbe Akiva. It's not Rebbe Akiva. Why? The Ik Rebbe Akiva Hamar Chayav Ha'of Eino Mina Torah. Right. He says that Chayan Of are not from the Torah. Right. And that sounds like this thinks that because it says Asur Levashel, you would assume that it includes Chayav. Well, we know it includes Chayav Ha'of, and that sounds like it's from the Torah. At least from the way we're reading the Mishnah at the moment.
Right.
V'tiretz Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi says, sorry, Hachi Kamar. Here's what the Mishnah is saying. Kol habasar asur levashel b'chalav, mehem midivrei Torah or mehem midivrei sofrim, chutz mibasar dagim v'chagavim, she'enan lo midivrei Torah v'lo midivrei sofrim. So Rav Ashi says, no. The Mishnah isn't differentiating between, we see this a few places, between Isur Deraita and Isur Derabanan. It's just saying, here's the blanket Isur, you will let you sort it out afterwards, which one's Asur Deraita and which one's Asur Derabanan. But the only meat-like substances that don't have an Isur at all, Levashel, I'll keep it as Levashel for the moment, with milk is Dagim and Chagavim, our fish and grasshoppers or crickets or something like that. So, okay.
In other words, there's some kind of Isser D'Rabbanan floating around for other things. And these are the only things that are are clean, that are completely permitted.
So, Umfar Ella, we'll see. Dagim may have its own issues in the Beit Yosef, but when we get there. So,
Mefarish.
Rabbeinu, the High Levashel, Le'echolhu, Velishan Dekra Denakat. And so, the Rambam teaches that this, when it says Levashel, what that actually means is Le'echol, right? And it's just, he's just using, or the Gemara is just using the language of the pasuk, right? Which is,
in other words, he's explaining the Gemara. He's Mefarish. He's explaining this Gemara. He's learning this Gemara that when it says Asur Levashel, even with this correction, where the Gemara says, some are Asur D'Rabbanan and some are D'Oraita, but that is all about Levashel. Well, the high Levashel Le'echolhu, that prohibition is Le'echol. When it says Levashel, it just means forbidden to eat. Relishna the Kranaki, because when the Torah, it's using the Gemara is using the same language that the Torah uses. The Torah says Lo tibashel gedi b'chalev imo, but it really means don't cook and don't eat, and don't have hana.
But you can, in fairness to in one of the times in the Torah, it only means don't eat, right? So it's in one of the times it means don't cook, and one of the times it means don't get hana. So he's taking the lishna that bashel means achila in one case. So
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't quite agree with that, but it's not that I wouldn't say that it's one and one. The fact that it says 3 times teaches us all of those, and all of them mean that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all of them mean all 3. Yeah, that's fair. So
I think yeah. Anyway.
So, all right. The bishul below achila no lo nesru chayav of afilu midivrehem, right? Right, because if we're talking about cooking without eating the chaya and the oaf, the wild animal and the bird, right? We know that even from the Rabbanan level that we only forbade them from eating bilvad, bilvad, achilat basar behema hamatzoi, because of the commonness of eating the basar of a behema. So. All right, that's similar.
In other words, wait, let me say that again. In other words, it can't be talking about bishul, because bishul's mutter, even according to the rabbis. Only forbidden is eating. Yeah.
But there's no forbiddenness to cook them or to get hana from them. So
right. Here's what's called begging the question.
Yeah,
this is called begging the question.
Yeah. So
okay, which is my brother. Unfortunately, my brother about 10 years ago explained to me that begging the question doesn't mean this leads to the next question.
No,
it means it's a circuit. It means it's circular reasoning.
Yeah.
And now, but of course, everybody on the news, on television, all the media begs the question to mean this begs us to ask the following question. So now I get it's enlightenment is how do you say is unpleasant sometimes, because then you have to suffer with listening to people say the wrong things.
So
better to be dumb and unenlightened. Okay. Aval b'bishul.
Ignorance is bliss. Right? But these were not forbidden in either cooking or hana. And why? Right? They've got they've got no better power. But like, why, if we're gonna make these asur, we make them asur when we didn't make behema Torah, and when one species is permitted and one species is forbidden together, where we explicitly know that those are miturim bebishul and hana. So why would there be a gezerah against the case of, let's say, of oaf and milk, if there's not one?
Of course, we could give a very simple reason. Because
you're not in bodlim mihen, right? We don't separate ourselves from oaf and
exactly. Since if we are allowing you to cook them, you're going to come to eat them. But like, you're not going to come to eat if we're cooking the milk with the tamea. You're not going to come to eat it because you know it's a behemah tamea.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Shach says. That's one of the things the Shach says. There's another thing that he says, a criticism of this, Does anyone remember another thing that the Shach says? If you saw the Shach, I think this is. We're not going to have time to read the Shach, so maybe I'll just mention another kasha with what his argument is what do you mean nakat lishna dekra? Lishna dekra means that I'll say bishul and I'll mean all three. But here you're saying, Mr. Magid Mishnah, that I'll say bishul and I'll mean only achila. That's not lashon dekra. Lashon dekra is bishul means everything. But that's not what you're saying here. You're saying bishul means dafka, not bishul, and it means dafka eating. So those are two kashas on the Magid Mishnah. The first one we said was that I mean lo yafu koach. There is a reason. I don't actually Taz. I'm not sure that the Shach says that. He says definitely the second thing that I said. Anyway, go on.
Amalogas rule bishul v'hana atu bishul v'hana. Yeah, so just because you can't get bishul and hana'a from Torah and Torah, you doesn't. They didn't make a gezerah for that reason on bishul and hana'a for chaya. Yeah, or chaya and either one.
Right,
so,
right.
But ve'ena gezerah ela achila bilvad. So there's only gezerah on eating. Ve'alfa pish yesh lidchot tishani hatam. Oh, that's
the kasha.
One who says it. Yeah, he's the one who says it.
He's the one who says it. Sorry, not the Shach.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure that I thought about it. I realized it wasn't the Shach that says it. Yeah. Okay.
Ve'en lachush shema yochlam. Aval b'chayav va'of b'chalav shekol achad b'fnei atzmo heter gazrul bishul v'alahana shema yavo lidei isur achila. Right. So ukshem shegazru b'isur he'ela al hashulchan k'moshit ba'er.
It's just like they prohibited you to put things on the table together, milk and meat, even though that's not eating it, but just putting it on the table is forbidden.
So
maybe they would have made a gezerah.
Mm-hmm. But v'che'ela chada gezerah he, and this is just the same gezerah. It's one. That's because we have a whole thing in Gozrino gezerah in that case, right? And we asked how that is, if I remember correctly. Zeu dat Rabbeinu shelo nesru ela b'achila bilvad. No, this is the opinion of the Rambam that it's only achila.
In other words, he says they didn't make that gezerah. They could have made it. In other words, he's like Moder, that they could have made a gezerah and said don't cook also, but that's not what he meant. So let's go back and look at the Rambam. Does this fit? So what does the Rambam mean? Let's look at Dalet again. V'ken basar chayav of bein v'chalav chayav bein v'chalav beima. Eino aser be'achila min haTorah. Lefichach muter livashel, muter b'hanaya. V'asur b'achila b'divrei sofrim k'dei shelo yifshua am v'yavo lidei iser basar b'chalav shel Torah. V'yochlu basar behemet tahora b'chalav behemet tameh. Right. The only right. So then, the problem is how do you read Gimel? I think that's the question. How do you read Gimel? Einis or minatora elo basar behemet tahora b'chalav behemet tahora. Shnei amar lo teveshel gedi b'chalav yimo v'gedi v'lo ne'amar gedi b'chalav yimo el shediber katuv b'choveh aval basar behemet tahora. Shebishlo b'chalav behema tameya, o basar behema tameya, bishlo b'chalav tahora, mutar lebashel, mutar b'hanaya. There he says mutar b'shel, mutar b'ein chayavin al chilato mishum basar b'chalav.
I think the problem is just how the Rambam's reading the Mishnah, right? That's the issue, because the Mishnah says levashel, and I don't think the Gemara doesn't say that means achila. I think the Rambam kind of drew that out himself, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Shach actually holds that the Rambam is not mukhrach this way. He actually thinks that the Rambam is actually forbidding when it's saying mutter. Where is it saying? But here it does sound like he's saying "Fichach mutter the bashel mutter." That's only minatora. I don't know. The Shach is difficult. The Shach is. Let's look at the Shach for a second. That's in the Shulchan Aruch.
It's a bet, I think.
It's what do you say? It's bet?
Right.
It's Gimel, I think.
What things?
Just a discussion of the Rambam's opinion. Right in the middle of that.
In the middle of bet? Yeah, let's look at bet. Okay. So here, the Shulchan Aruch brings basically the tour. Katuv b'Torah lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo, shosha pa'amim, echad le'isur bishul, v'echad le'isur achila, v'echad le'isur hana'a, v'hotzi achila b'lashon bishul lomar, she'eno asur min ha'Torah, el derech bishul, aval midrabanan asur b'kol inyan, which is still talking about, even that's just like if you soak it or something, right? In other words, if you don't, right, kol basar b'chalav she'eno asur min ha'Torah muter behana'a. Okay, so let's look at that. Kol basar b'chalav muter behana'a. That's this Ramah here, where the Ramah says there's no isur hana'a on things unless they're asur min ha'Torah. He says like this: Tur ve'isur ve'heter ha'aruch klal lamed din hey ve'ken dat ha'mechaber b'sif gimel debasar of b'chalav she'eno asur b'achila ela midrabanan muter b'hana'a af midrabanan ve'ken dat ha'ra'a b'sefer achinuch mitzvah kuf yud gimel ve'ken dat ha'rambam perak tet meilchos ma'achot asarot din daled lehedia. Right. V'ken bir devarav sheperish b'mishnah perek kol basar v'ken pirish harav magid dato v'kach hevina marsha perek kol basar siman kuf v'shar achronim dat harambam v'lo kemoshe katav bach de dat harambam de basar of v'chalav asur b'hana'a midrabanan. So the Bach actually is the first one to say that it's asur d'Rabbanan, even according to the Rambam. The data Rambam, the basar of b'chalav asur b'hana'a midrabanan, k'moshe asur b'achila midrabanan. All right, we don't have time to go through that, but you should just know. I think it's also in Gimel that he talks about it. Really, in Gimel he talks about it, but all right. Let's go back to the tour. And we have Isser Basar, right? We have in the beginning of the tour, Isser Basar Kativ Lo Tevashel Gedi B'Chalev Imo V'Nei Amar Shlosh Pa'amim B'Torah Echad Isser Bishul Echad Isser Achila Echad. We read this. So let's look at the Darkei Moshe Aleph. Mordechai. The Mordechai Perek Ein Ma'amidin. Yesh lochiach de'im ne'asar basar b'chalav al yedei melicha or al yedei kivush. What if you just salted together milk and meat, or you did soak them together, kivush? The dafka ba'achila asur v'lo b'hana'ah. The yesh dochim, and there are those that disagree. Therefore, if you choose to permit hana'ah, we're not going to object. Kol kama delo ashkechan ra'el isr ad kanshon. V'amagid mishnah b'perek tet mihilchos ma'achot asurot katav deyesh osrim basar of b'chalav b'hana'ah which is unlike the tur. Because of b'chalav is something that is only asur d'Rabbanan. And yet he's saying it is asur b'hana'ah. Psak tur d'shari. V'lacham psak asur d'shari v'ken katav ha'aruch shekol davar shehu midrabanan muter b'hana'ah. And if you skip, okay, so the muter b'hana'ah. V'katav ma'ariv ein ma'arivin mayim shehutchu bo ka'arot shel basar imayim shehutchu bo ka'arot shel chalav v'liten otam lifnei behem to. So what if you mix together like water that has bits of meat in it and bits of milk in it? So you can't feed that water to your animals. The have basar b'chalav, even though it wasn't cooked together, it's basar b'chalav. Asar b'hana'ah ad kadashon v'katav b'isar v'heter aruch klal lamed. The aim lakpid kulehai. You don't have to really be so strict. But it's good. In the next Darkei Moshe, he brings another case where he says, let's see the other case. He brings a case of a sort of strange case. I think it's that they're making pots in the furnace, in like a big furnace in their house. It's called like a beit choref. Katav b'piskei amariv hakederot shehen asuyin b'toch hatanurim shel beit choref. In this big ovens, they would make pots. I guess I like to use it as a kiln to fire the pots. Umechamim bo mayim ve'ein listapek me'otan mayim. In other words, these pots were made there, and now they take the pots out and they heat up water in those pots. They use them as their water heating pots. He says, you shouldn't use the water that you got from those pots, lo basar v'lo chalav, for either milk or meat. Mishum de lefamim mesimim kederot im basar l'toch hatanor umetiz mimenu alotan keder. Because it could be that there was a pot in the beit choref, in the big kiln at the time they were cooking, and they were cooking like meat, and it splashed on your pot while it was being fired. Otsolin bo basar, and v'lefamim mesimim sham kederot shel chalav umetiz alav. It could spray on your pot, and now this pot is really a fleshik pot. So you could use it, but you can't use the water for milk or meat because you don't know if it's a milk or meat pot. Umedinot elu ein noagin behen heter. No, we don't elu noagin behen heter. We are allowed them. Vatam de nirali mishum de ein lachush le echzik riuta bedavar de lo chazina. So this is a nice cloud. We are not going to create a deficit, a problematic scenario in a case where we didn't see it happen. The lo chazina. Ubefrat medinat elu she'en regilin kol kach lebashel v'litzlot b'oton tanarima. Because we don't, and also we don't usually even cook in those ovens. They're really just furnaces for heating the house. Right, in the place that they put the pots. Now he says mayim. This is an interesting thing. Mayim shechofafim bo harosh, water that they would use to pour over your head to wash your hair, like shampoo, I guess. Asur l'takanan b'kli kasher mishum dehakitma she'osin bo hamayim ruban noklin min hakira etzel ha'esh shenitpashel sham Kederot chalav v'kederot basar v'nimsa basar v'chalav morav ba. So they would make the shampoo. They would make out of ashes, and the ashes they would take from the stovetop, and the stovetop would have bits of milk and bits of meat in it. And so now you've got like this burnt meat and burnt milk, and you're mixing it together, and then that would be like the shampoo concentrate. And then you would pour that with water and make a thing that like a broth kind of, and that you would wash your hair with. So he's saying that concentrate, you don't know it, but it's really got milk and meat in it. Shosim bo mishum sorry. Nimsa basar v'chalav u'aviv bo. So it comes out that there's milk and meat there, and you shouldn't get hana'ah from it, even though it's not cooked together. That's the point. We're discussing, that's the topic here. Can you have hana'ah from milk and meat that were put together but not cooked together? And he's saying you cannot, or he's quoting people who say you cannot.
If Rav Nachum, it's a couple of times in the Nazikel to the Shulchan Aruch that if it's not derech bishul, like for example, if you have like just cham basar and cham chalab that go together, then it's actually mutter behana.
Yeah.
But
They end up saying that like if you do it like also with kavisha or malicha, basically anything that's not considered proper bishul, then anything that's not considered proper bishul, many of the poskim say is mutar bahana because it's only things that were like lotiv hashel.
Right, but the Darkei Moshe is bringing the Maharil, who's being machmir on this.
Or bahana doraita.
Okay, he's just cholik on that.
Yeah, he's just cholik. Yeah, that's exactly what he's showing here. He's doing a little detour here and telling you about various cases where even though the bishul is not really bishul, there's still an isser of hana.
Right, but as you pointed out, the Ramah doesn't, and even like as he shows up in the Shulchan Aruch, doesn't like uncomplicatedly say this is definitely the deen. He like mentions this as an opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a break here, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. All right, the truth is that there's a lot of things that we could have seen in the tour, but let's go to the Shulchan Aruch. There was a Bach there that I wanted to see, actually. If you're in your own time, you could look at the Bach Bet, if you wanted to. But we gotta be more methodical in our learning here and just try to go through the Seifim. I think that would be useful. So we read the first Seif, and there's not much to say about the first Seif, except for one thing here. In the Mishpatzot Zahav, if you look in the Mishpatzot Zahav and Aleph, but not at the beginning of Aleph, where it says Vehine. You see that? It's like in mine, it's like in dark letters. There's a Da in dark, and then there's Vehine.
Vehine Tzaliyat Sur, Mina Torah.
Yeah. Yeah, so here, Joel, you read that.
Excuse me for opening my mouth.
Yeah.
Vehine Tzaliyat Sur, Mina Torah, Ayin Pri Chadash, Ot Bet.
Okay, so first of all, there's a Pri Chadash that's very important. Everybody's quoting the Pri Chadash. Everybody's quoting the Pri Chadash here. That Sli is its Aser Min Torah. Okay, go on.
All right.
In other words, the question is roasting also called bishul? Okay, go ahead.
Ve'al yedei tigun, after Pri Chadash sham hechlit dehavi min Torah. Hine, who is it? The
Minchat Yaakov.
Minchat Yaakov, that's right. Minchat Yaakov, Bichal Pehe, Besot Lemincha, Sided Lakel, V'chein Mashmut Rashi.
Oh, so wait a second. So now he's quoting the Minchat Yaakov that's saying that what a tigun is, which is a kind of sli, it's a kind of sli, tigun is frying, is not asur. Go ahead.
And he's got V'chein Mashmut Rashi, V'Tosfot, Sanhedrin, Daled Bet, Vayen Maharam Shif, the Maharam Shif, Besofa Sefer, Havi Bechaved Shratzu L'Takno B'Shuman V'Tignu B'Chema. So
So here we got a case. Interesting case. They wanted to fry liver in
oil,
fat, but they fried it in butter.
But and he also determines that tigun is, I assume that it's lahakel and bechule, but I'm not sure.
Right. He mattered it basically.
So, but oveod did sham de chaved hu dam ugdi asrat rav lo dam. That's Arichion. He says also the kaved is actually just dam, and therefore dam and chalav is not.
Yeah, I forget. Somebody else brings the same case. I forget where, but maybe it's actually Rav Eger. But he also brought this, that he's trying to be lenient about this liver fried in butter because it's frying, and then he says mikol halin.
Yeshlet saded behane mila, I assume it is latir mine tigun.
Behefsed merubah.
Oh, behefsed merubah. Sorry, you're right. So if the case of behefsed merubah, then we should permit behana'a, things that were fried. So if you fry meat in butter, and for some reason it was an accident, and like maybe you lost a lot of money, it was very expensive meat, you could sell it to a non-Jew. Okay.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough.
Okay,
that's enough. Just wanted you to see that first of all, this din that sli. First of all, you should understand that sli, it's a machloket, whether frying is or roasting is considered bishul. It's also brought in Rabbi Akiva Eger, but I don't think we have time for it. So let's go on to Bet. Here, Sarah, you want to read Bet?
Sure. Gdi lav davka dehu adin shor se ve'ez veloshna bechelev imo veloshna bechelev acheret ela shedavar hakatuv shediber hakatuv behova. So that's basically a version of what we saw earlier.
All right, Gimel.
Eno noheg ela kebasar behema Torah bechalav behema Torah aval basar Torah bechalav tme'ah o basar tme'ah bechalav Torah mutarim bevishul uvahana. So that's only in the case where there's kosher meat and milk from a kosher animal, but if there's either non-kosher meat or milk from a non-kosher animal, then that's mutar to cook and to benefit from.
Right. Okay. Look. So you keep going. Ubasar chaya.
Oh, sorry. There's a dalid here that's very deceptive. Ubasar chaya ve'of afilu bechalav teora mutar bevishul uvahana ve'af ba'achila eno asor ela midirabanan aval dagim v'chagavim ein behem isur afilu midirabanan. Haga v'nahagu.
Wait. Basar chaya ve'of afilu bechalav tehora. Mutar b'bishul ubahana'a af b'achila eno asur ela midrabanan. So he fixed the language here of the tour, but what does he say? So where's the isur d'Rabbanan?
There's an isur d'Rabbanan on.
It's only
on the sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
On the achila, right?
Go ahead. It's only on achila. That's what I was going to say. It's only on achila. It's not on cooking.
So cooking chicken in milk would be permitted.
Although I do wonder whether you could there's a possibility of a dachuk reading that says that he's saying there's an isur d'Rabbanan on all three of those things. If you wanted to read it that way, I wonder if you could.
No, but that's actually, you see, the Beit Yosef criticizes the tour for writing in an unclear way, and here he tried to fix it up and try to avoid dafka that reading. I think that's the point. He's saying clearly, Basar chayav va'of afilu b'chalav tahor mutar b'bishul ubahana'a v'af b'achila. Not only is it's eno asur ela midrabanan.
I think his main issue with the
So
Torah was
Echila is worse, and that's only Asur D'Rabbanan, so the other ones are less, so they must not be Asur D'Rabbanan. Yeah.
I was just saying, like, I think that I do think there's Rav Nachum saying that like cooking the, oaf and milk is mutar, but his main issue with the Torah's language was more just that the Torah's language implied that all of the things that were not basar v'chalav d'oraita were mutar d'Rabbanan, mutar d'oraita to eat. And he was like, well, no, like tamei animals or tamei milk are asur d'oraita to eat, just not like mishum basar v'chalav. And that was his main critique.
Right. Okay, so yes, that's true. Okay, there, Sarah, read Dalit.
Do you want me to read
Shach,
Ramah?
in the Shach.
Do you want me to? Oh, Dalit in the Shach. Okay. One moment. Why can't I? Fine.
Yeah, today is Shach day. We're gonna do all the
Shach.
Shachs, actually. That's what I
Turns
want.
out that if you look for it in the Taz, you will not find it. Who knew?
We're ignoring the
Basar
Taz.
chaya
Taz is, you see,
Yeah. Sorry, I
Taz
was
is
just
too
looking at the wrong
smart.
thing.
It's too smart for us.
Okay, basar v'chaya v'of v'chulei. Is that where you wanted me to be?
Yes.
V'af ba'achila v'chulei. Dat ha'machaber de basar chaya v'of einu asur ba'achila afilu derech bishul ela midrabanan umutar b'hana'a uvishul legamrei. So he thinks that the machaber is saying that for basar, for chaya v'of, there's there's no prohibition on eating it, even if that's like sort of connected to cooking it, and that's only a deraba.
Wait, you're getting too confused there.
No, sorry. Okay. So he thinks that the machaber thinks that the that basar chaya.
Not the machaber that eat. In other words, there's two possibilities with chicken. One is a chicken salad sandwich with cheese, which would be chicken and milk that were not cooked together, and one would be,
and then one that is
one
cooked.
would be like, what is it, chicken
Right.
Alfredo?
So
What's it called? Or I don't know,
chicken parmesan.
Parmesan. There you go, chicken
Right.
parmesan.
So he thinks chicken. Right. So
he's
chicken
not the
salad
machaber.
sandwich is not the chicken salad sandwich. There's no isur, and then
actually, no, I think about it. Afilu derech bishul. In other words, even if it's bishul, there's nothing.
Right. So
Now,
the chicken
even
salad
if-
sandwich is definitely not asur, and even the chicken parmesan is not asur.
Even the chicken parmesan is not asur. Afilu
And
derech
it's mutar
bishul.
b'hana'ah.
Eno elamid rabbanan. And therefore, because it's only asur rabbanan on the eating, then the hana'ah and the bishul are mutar legamri.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, by the way, why is there a difference between hana'ah and echila? We have a drasha that says they're all forbidden. Should one be more strict than the other one? Like he's sort of saying kal v'chomer. In other words, even like, why is it so surprising that eating is permitted? Yeah, Joel.
Can
Alan, go for it.
Alan.
Yeah.
just to clarify what you said, Sarah, I initially read this to mean that the chicken salad, even the chicken parmesan, is only asur d'Rabbanan, but that doesn't necessarily mean the chicken salad is mutar.
Well, then why did he say even?
Could be both of them.
Yeah, and also
He had in his mind some other case.
What kind of other
Derech
case?
bishul,
Mhm.
he says, "The basar chayav of eino asur ba'achila." That's just basar chayav of. If you're eating the meat with cheese, va'afilu derech bishul is also filu derech bishul ela midurabanan. It's only asur d'Rabbanan. Umutter b'hana'ah. Okay, whatever he means, we got the idea. That somehow eating is more strict, but bishul and hana'ah is mutter.
I was just referring specifically to the chicken salad case. That I thought I heard one of you say that according to this understanding in the mechaber, it's mutter, and that was not how I read it.
No, not mutter. No.
No one's saying it's much.
Okay, so I missed.
No, it's just we'll get to that case in Pechet
right.
and Pechet, right? That there's a gezerah on that case. So
Okay, go ahead. Umaharil. I'm going to ask the question, but it's not that important.
okay.
You had it's not that important, but I asked a question, which is why is eating worse than anything else than the other two?
Because I think the understanding at the end of the day is that achila is actually the basis of all of this, right? That if I cook meat and milk to make glue, right, and not that it was inedible, that might be a whole different category. And this is really about achila at the end of the day.
Also, because ultimately we have, like, once we're within the realm of kashrut, right, that like the Psalm, like the basic assumption is aser ba'achila, and it's only a handful of things that are aser b'hana, and it's only basar b'chalav that it's aser b'bishul, right? And so, like, in general, the notion that things that are potentially problematic from a kashrut stance would be forbidden to eat, that's like the first place that we go, right? Everything beyond that is like an extra madrega, right? So, like,
Right,
yeah,
but right. But from a technical point of view, the drushas are equivalent. We're equating them all. That's all I was saying. Right, from a technical point of view, they're equal. And if you would go like and in fact, if you would go like the pshat, it seems like bishul is worse than eating.
well, no, but right, as in that's part of why I forget who it was that was Brogan's explanation, but like points out the example of like the bat bito, right? That like of like, yes, obviously, if you're not allowed to sleep with your granddaughter, like kol shekain, you're not allowed to sleep with your daughter. Like it just felt like that was a thing that you could learn out intuitively, right? That there are some things that it's like, yeah, that like again, you could argue that there are some.
It's begging the question. It's begging the question because we don't really know what the issur is. It could be that the prohibition is to cook them together because it's like avodah zarah. Because people, like the Rambam says, that it was a minhag of the avodah zarah to cook them together. Maybe it was to create a magical potion.
I think that is not the pshat of the way that it's situated. Certainly, in like obviously, like I don't think in any of the places that it's situated that is the most pshat read of what's happening there. And given that we do end up situating it, like it does seem to be when it comes to eating prohibitions, like it is for like, you know, contextualized within that, it makes sense to say, yes, okay, if we're saying like live like al tivashel, hashu, like, you know, we didn't say don't eat because it's obvious to us to you that if you're not allowed to cook it, that you also wouldn't be able to eat it. Like the idea of something that you would be forbidden to cook but allowed to eat, it feels very non-intuitive, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I hear you. But while we're on the subject of alternative readings of the Torah, you could read it as you know, you're bringing a maybe there was a avodah zarah custom of bringing a bikur, bringing your firstborn sheep and then cooking it in milk as a kind of that was the way you would do the sacrifice. Anyway, Marshal. So we read the Marshal.
The Marshal. V'habach talu atzman divrei hamahari v'hagos Yoreh Deah Siman ayin vav b'ma shekatav kasher lahakel neged hatosvot lekach pasur de basar chaya ve'of b'chalav de'oraita. So the Maharshal and also the Bach and the Mahari all seem to say that this we can't hold this way because it's sort of doesn't make sense to hold against the Tosfot who say that basar chaya ve'of b'chalav is de'oraita.
Wait. No, that they object to what we just said. And not only did they say
that's what I said.
Okay, that's what you said. Lekach pasku de basar chaya ve'of b'chalav de'oraita.
Yeah, they object because in part because the Tosfot say that it's de'oraita. Right.
So who is that like?
Well, it's like
that? Is that Rabbi Yossi?
No, Rabbi Yossi just so chayat still, but with oath it's mutar.
Yeah.
So who is this? Who is this opinion? It's the Rabbanan.
Yeah, it's
Rabbanan,
basically.
And understanding Rabbi Akiva as not being a mefarish, but as being a cholek. Agreed? It's the Rabbanan. In other words, the Tosfos Pasuk is like the Rabbanan, and they say it's also right. The chicken and milk is also right. This is extremely important because we are going to see various places where we say we treat milk and meat that are cooked, even though we don't paskin really like this. We paskin that milk and chicken is the Rabbanan. But we're going to see various places where we talk about it, it's the Rabbanan, Safek the Rabbanan, Lahakil, and we say there's exceptions sorry, I said this. There are cases where we see that we treat milk and chicken cooked together as though it's d'oraita. In other words, we don't allow certain leniencies that we would normally allow by a d'Rabbanan by chicken and milk specifically. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, this sort of comes around in the back of our minds and affects the way we paskin in various cases, and we'll see that in the future learning. So this is actually a very important point. Ubesefrei, go ahead.
Usifrei exakti divrei amoraim.
Ubesefrei, sorry. Ubesefrei, and in my book, yeah.
Divrei amoraim shehu midarabanan min hashas. Ve'eveti sham shekin dat harbe poskim meod.
Okay, so many poskim say it's d'Rabbanan.
Yeah, and I have like a good sort of Talmudic basis for my claim.
Right, except that we have the Marshal, the Bach, various.
Right, of all these other people on the other side.
So there's a nice machloket here. Let's skip. That's all I wanted to see there. Just to see that there is this way out opinion, kind of. It's kind of a way out opinion about chicken. Okay. And now I want to see hey. Hey goes avadagim v'chagavim ein behen isur afilu midrabanan. So look at hey in the shach. You can keep reading, Sarah.
Sure. Aval dagim v'chulei. Katav ha.
Teret zahav.
Teret zahav v'zel shono mikol makom ein la'achol dagim b'chalav mipnei hasakana. Commotion ba'er ba'orach chaim siman such and such ad kan l'shono.
Okay, siman such and such. Let us look at siman such and such. I happen to have it open. I'll just read it to you. Kuf ayin gimel sif bet. It says, sif aleph. Mayim emtsoyim. This is you heard all mayim achronim. You're supposed to wash before you bench, but also there's emtsoyim in the middle of the meal. You also wash before, which is for bread. But there's also in the middle sometimes reshut. It's optional. V'hanimili bein tavshil to tavshil. This is talking about between one food type to another. Aval bein tavshil ligvina chova. But between meat and cheese, chova, you have to. Bein tavshil ligvina. I suppose he really means between gvina and tavshil. You're eating first gvina and then you're having tavshil. But whatever exactly he means, not clear. Now bet bein basar dagim chova litol. So bein basar lidagim, between meat and fish, chova litol, you have to wash your hands. Mishum dekashe ledavar acher, because it causes leprosy or something. Davar acher. Vechmirus sekanta meisura, and we should be more careful about it because this is a sakana. So and therefore we should wash our hands between basar and fish. Did it say anything about cheese and fish? No, the only mention of fish is in the context of basar and fish. So he says, so this is, so if you go back, ein le'achol dagim b'chalav mipnei sakana commotion it ba'er ba'orach chaim. Ad kan l'shana. Ube'emet, so read on, ube'emet.
Ube'emet nimshach achar habeit Yosef shekatav kein, aval hu ta'ut ki lo niskar sham ela didagim im basar asur mishum sakana ela b'chalav lo shaman v'lo ra'inu. Aval b'chalav lo shaman v'lo ra'inu. So, like you said, that it only mentions
right.
basar and fish, and we doesn't say anything about
Yosef. I skipped the Beit Yosef, but the Beit Yosef says the exact same thing. He says you have to wash between fish and cheese, and this is actually the source for this Beit Yosef, for a minhag of the Sephardim to not eat milk with fish, but it's based on presumably a slip of the pen of the Beit Yosef, because he meant to be talking about fish and meat. All right, Velora'in. Just to finish this little short shach.
בכל יום ויום נוהגים הכי לבשל דגים וחלב ולאכול. וגם בדרכי משה השיג על הבית יוסף בזה, וכן בספר באר שבע דף ק, ושאר אחרונים השיגו עליו בזה. וגם בש"ס פרק כל צולין, I guess, כיצד צולין, משמע בהדיא דלית בי אפילו משום סכנה, עיין שם, והוא פשוט.
So yeah, you can
lots of
look if you
people seem to
want.
agree.
Right, you don't have to
agree.
translate. Basically, he's saying, what do you say he agrees with? Sorry, I
I'm
cut
saying
you off.
lots of people seem to agree that like there's no prohibition on.
Right. He says even the Gemara agrees with it. And
Even the
basically, if you
Gemara.
want to look at this, the Darkei Moshe argues on the Beit Yosef on this topic, and basically says it's a mistake. He says it's out Sofri. Okay, so that's interesting little din there. Here, who would like to read the Ramah?
You can read it.
All right, go ahead.
The
Nagu lasot.
נהגו לעשות חלב משקדים ומניחים בשר עוף, הואיל ואינו רק מדרבנן. אבל בשר בהמה יש להניח אצל החלב שקדים משום מראית העין, כמו שנפער לאל, לעניין דם. Okay.
Right.
So now we're getting into this Merit Ayin concern. If we're going to use almond milk, if we're going to use almond milk, we put basar open it since it's just Rabbanan.
Then you have no problem. Then you have no problem. In other words, it's almost like you don't have an isser of marit ayin because it's a Rabbanan.
Okay. But for basar behema, you actually do need to put shkedim in front of the milk, right? But because of marit ayin, there needs to be some sort of siman to
Which
indicate.
is why I say that if you want to eat basar that was made by genetic engineering or whatever, that growing it by using fetal cells or whatever they do, it should be fine as long as you have a label on the table. As long as you put like the label that says, or you're in a restaurant that advertises, it's a milk restaurant, and then it's clear what you're doing. So look at Vav here. Read Vav in the Shach.
Right. Vav back in the Shach. ונהגו לעשות חלב משקדים וכולי, כלומר, we talked about
Below dami ledam dagim.
לא דמי לדם דגים, סוף סעיף ס"ו, שמותר לגמרי, ואפילו הם התכנסו בכלי עשר מפני מראית עין. אחר כך יש בו קשקשים שניכר שהוא דם דגים. אלא אם כן, דהתם דם גופי אסר מדורייתא. הלכך הרואה יאמר דאכל דם בהמה שאסר מדורייתא. אבל בשר עוף בחלב ממש הוא מדרבנן, ולכל מיחש למראית העין. ולכן בשר בהמה בחלב שהוא אסר מדורייתא, יש להניח אצלו שקדים כדי שלא יחשוב הרואה שהוא חלב ממש. Okay.
Wait. So, you read a lot there.
Okay. Right. So for dam, the fish blood, there actually is an isser d'oraita that would be involved with fish. There does need to be a clear sign there. But for basar b'av, there's no direct prohibition, so we don't have to worry so much about maritime.
Right. So he's saying basically that, in other words, aval basar of b'chalav mamash, even if it would be the thing that we suspect you of doing, that it looks like you're doing, you're not. Of course, you're having almond milk, but it looks like you're having chicken, it's but even if you would be doing the thing that looks like you're doing, it's only Rabbanan. And therefore, there's no din of marit ayin. Leika the mechash the marit ayin in din Rabbanan, which is a crazy, a wild chiddush, which we wouldn't necessarily think of. But he's about to reject this opinion.
Yeah, it's not even just he's like this is just wrong.
Yeah, he's about to reject this opinion, but that's the way it sounds, by the way, from the Ramah, right? The Ramah seems to be clearly distinguishing between chicken and milk and meat and milk. So it's basically the Shach is arguing on the Ramah. So, but so far he's not arguing. So far he's just supporting the Ramah. So go on. V'lechen basar behema. Read from there.
יש להניח אצלו שקדים כדי שלא יחשוב להראה שהוא חלק ממש. וכן כתוב בתורת חטאת, ולפי זה צריך לומר דמרת בבישול. דילאו אחי אפילו בשר בהמה ליקה איסורא דאורייתא.
In other words, you must be saying that he's talking not about lahaniach. It says manichim. The Ramah seems to be saying manichim. He's making a very interesting point. The Ramah says manichim, which just means you're putting it in milk. It doesn't say you're cooking it in milk. And if you're putting it in milk, there should be no difference between a behema tameya and a chicken, because either way, it's not. Sorry, between a what was it?
Behema tahora, like a
behema tahora with shkedim and a chicken with shkedim. There should be no difference because they're not cooking it. So why? So there shouldn't be a difference. So he must be saying that when he says laniach, he means bishul, and then I can understand the difference. V'ken muchach, and it's provable from Torah Chatat, his book. Go on. Ubasimane Torah Chatat. Aval Hamarsha. Start from there. Aval Hamarsha.
Aval b'Marsha b'Perek Kol Basar Lamad Mehach Dedam Dagim Debepurim Kiyotze Bo Sherigilim La'achol Tarnagolot B'Chalav Shekedim She'asur Im Lo She'iniach Shekedim Etzlo B'Tochan O B'Tzidan Lahekera.
So that's a case of requiring the getting out of Marit Ayin, even though it's only Nisad Rabbanan, because it's shkedim and with chicken. So the Marshal, this goes back to this article that Joel sent out a while ago, or this was an article or a move video, I don't remember, about the Marshal, how the Marshal is kind of like almost equivalent to the Ramah. And here he's saying we're bringing him in as bringing Machmir here. Okay. In other words, he says no, even though it's Rabbanan, on Purim, they would make this chicken with shkedim milk, and they would put shkedim there. So you see that even in Nisad Rabbanan, even in a theoretical Nisad Rabbanan thing, it looks like Nisad Rabbanan, you need to worry about Marit Ayin.
Right. ובפרט בבשר עוף דקל מיחש תרי, שלא יגנו לומר בשר עוף בחלב שרי, אפילו מדרבנן. כרבי יוסי גלילי.
Right. Ad kan l'sham. As you might think that we're pasking like Rabbi Yosei Glili, so therefore you got to put them. The Ken Heskimu.
וכן הסכימו האחרונים, וכן נראה לפי הניותתי.
Daha.
דהה אפילו במידי דרבנן, חיישינן למראיתיים בכמה דוכתה.
Okay, stop there. So there you go. So we sort of proved, well, whatever. We were basically saying that the Marshal is disagreeing with the Ramah, apparently, and the Ramah himself doesn't seem to make, well, he's supposed to be talking about Bishul, right? And that we do worry about Marit Ayin in Dinei D'Rabbanan. Okay, I think that's an interesting point to know. All right, let's go on to Dalet. Andre, you want to read Dalet?
Yes.
אסור לבשל בשר בחלב אישה מפני מוריד עין, ואם נפל לתוך התבשיל, בטל, ואין צריך שיעור.
Right. So you can't cook with mother's milk, with meat. Oh, it doesn't say meat. Asur levashel b'chalav imo, presumably meat. But it's not really asur in the sense that you need a shiur, that you need 60 against it if it falls in, because it's really only because of marit ayin. Go ahead.
הגה, ונראה לפי זה,
It seems like an odd choice to use the word batel here. But maybe not. I don't know.
Well, we talked about that last week, didn't we? That batel seemed. We also had. I think Lexi said something similar about the misuse of the word batel.
Yeah, like I think it becomes so ubiquitous within the kashrut like lingo, right? That they end up using it when they mean like in the hush, like even when it's actually not really the mechanism of
Right.
Right. This came up last class with suffix fake.
Right.
Well, but I would say that it is requiring a rove. In other words, it's batel b'rov. In other words, if I had mostly mother's milk, then it's going to look like mother's milk.
Why?
Because it's purely, there's like actually, there's no, it's like purely a marasayan thing.
Yeah, but once it's rove mother's milk, then it's going to be us because of marit ayin.
Okay, so do something to stop the marasayan. Like I think that probably the avad in that case, it would still be considered kosher to eat.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, go on. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
why would
batel,
rove be an
get
issue?
hung up. What? What, Yavni?
Oh, sorry. Why would rove? Why would rove?
I'm just
be
saying because we've seen this idea before that you have to still know what the thing is. Rove tells me what the thing is.
Right,
if it's all of a sudden rove mother's milk, then the thing is mother's milk.
Yeah, but that's an issue when it's like if it's rove isul, but so what's wrong with mother's milk?
I feel like
because mother's milk says mother's milk is also forbidden to eat. That's
no, it's not. What?
Yeah, it is.
It is what?
No.
Well, we didn't learn that here.
It is.
It is what?
Mother's milk is asur d'Rabbanan.
No, it's not.
No, it's
I don't
not.
think it is.
No.
In certain.
No, it's purely a marasayan thing. Like they distinguish between that. I think you're maybe thinking of chalav zachar, but even then, no. But even the chalav zachar, they end up saying.
Yeah.
Well, I forget about that, but like as in that's different. The chalav zachar, yeah, I think the chalav zachar they end up saying is asur d'Rabbanan, which unclear exactly what you're referring to there.
Why would? Well, all right. There is a case. Maybe if you drink directly from the mother, then it's forbidden. I don't.
Yeah,
remember.
then yes, they do say it's mutar, and if you drink directly from mother, then it's an issue of irva. It's a different problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, as in it also like it shouldn't be rove related. We say it's marasayan, it would potentially be related to like, can you see milk at all? Right, but it seems like rove shouldn't be significant because that's only relevant vis-a-vis.
You're saying it's. I hear what you're saying. In other words, whatever it's, you should even. They're saying either it's like if it's 90% milk and a piece of meat falls into it, so then it's mutter because it's mostly milk, and milk is the majority, and so that's mutter. And if it's 90% meat and then 10% milk falls into it, then it's also mutter because it's meat. And meat is also mutter. Okay. But let's read the wait. So anyway, Venera, read again the Ramah.
ונראה לפי זה, בכל שכן, אסור לבשל לכתחילה בחלב טמאה, ובשר טמאה בחלב טהור, ודווקא בשר בהמה, אבל בעוף דרבנן אין לחוש.
So translate that.
So it seems now, according to this, that it's okay. I don't know, that it's even more obvious that it's forbidden to cook lechatchila in milk that is not kosher.
From the tamea, from like camel milk, let's say, or donkey milk.
Or meat that is camel milk, camel meat in normal good milk, and even
why is that asur? What would be the reason? The same reason that we said in the Mechaber.
Yeah.
Marit Ayin. In other words, we sort of came back to it may be only Isser, it may not be an Isser D'Rabbanan at all, but it is an Isser D'Rabbanan because of Marit Ayin. In other words, we were wondering, is it Isser D'Rabbanan or not? To do the cooking, maybe it's just the eating that's Isser D'Rabbanan. Well, it's going to come out being an Isser D'Rabbanan now, but from a different avenue because of Marit Ayin.
Rather than like an Isser D'Rabbanan, because a lot of things that we just call an Isser D'Rabbanan stam are things that are us or even b'diavad, right? Whereas this, the whole point is that like it's this gzera, not to use mishum, like blank concern, but that like if you get it, we don't actually think there's any kashrut concern with what you've produced.
Point well taken. In other words, very well. Point well taken. In other words, you're saying l'chatchila you can't do this, but b'diavad, if you did it, it would be mutter. But if it would be an Isser D'Rabbanan, then it would be Asr even b'diavad. Good point.
Right, well, the Shach and the Taz both offered a couple of.
So here, so let's look at. So wait, aval of the Rabbanan ein lachush. What does he mean there?
I think he's saying that like I think he means that like off with Chalav May.
It's fine.
No, actually, I think he must.
Dafka basar behema aval ba'of basar of. Basar of in the Rabbanan ein lachush.
Because it can't just like on the one hand, it's weird if he thinks
Of,
that.
I guess he means of in Chalav Tameh.
We're in Of Tameh.
Yeah, I think it
You're
has
in the section of Chalav Tameh.
I think it has to be because otherwise, like as we pointed out, like it's also, only Durabanan, the actual basar, like there's only any Durabanan concerns, if any Durabanan concern whatsoever, right? According to many, there's not even a Durabanan basar b'chalav with like basar tameh and chalav tahor, vice versa, right? So it must be referring to.
This is a case that we never talked about, kind of like where the behema is tameya and the milk is tameya. We always talked about one or the other. But what about if they're both? Or what about if it's chicken and milk that's tameya? That's like a double whammy, right? It's double, two reasons to be mekel. And so there he's saying you could cook it. Although it would look, I don't see why. If it's marit ayin, would it look any different? I mean, it would look, how would you know the milk is from a tameya?
They tend to say that the tameh milk is like, they think, like they talk about it as being visually distinct. They
talk about it as being like green.
They talk about it being like greenish yellow. Like again, having not really looked at much donkey or pig milk or whatever.
Where do you see that? I didn't notice that.
That's not in this source. It like shows up elsewhere when they talk about it. They talk about it being like a yellowish color.
Well, if you look at the Taz and the
Taz quotes it, I think.
The first long line and Kuf Pei. He says, "Masha'en came im chalav tamei im basar tamei ein domeh lebasar b'chalav shel tehorim. Al ken lo gazer shamiknei marit ayin."
He just says lo dameh. It's not similar.
Right. I think he was talking before about that the visual appearance actually is.
Okay. Actually, I want you to look at Shach Zion, the beginning of Shach Zion. So that's where he says, Nira lefi zed, kol shekid asur lebashel lechatchila b'chalav tamei. That whole discussion that we were having, so you can't even, lechatchila, you can't cook in kosher meat in tamei milk. So what does the Shach say? Who was reading? Andre, you keep reading. Lefi dat harav.
Lefi dat harav, what is that? The kol sheken.
Kol sheken, yeah.
נראה צריך להשב דכתבו
הטור והמחבר
בסעיף ג' מותרים בבישול והנאה והיא משנה ארוכה בפרק
כל הבשר,
כל הבשר, הוא
מוסכם מכל,
הוא מוסכם מכל הפוסקים, דהיינו דמותר מדינה, אבל משום מוריד עין לא מאירי.
לא, לא מאירי, right. So stop there. So in other words, he's saying that he's trying to relate to Gimel, right? Lefi data Rav, the kol shekain hu nira tzarich liyashev had katvu atur v'mechaber b'sif Gimel demuter, because we saw before that it's muter rabishul. Muter rabishul, says the mechaber in Gimel. Ubahana afba, right? And then the Ramah didn't even mention anything about it. He didn't argue. But here, he's coming l'taken. He's coming to make any misconceptions go away and say, no, it is asur because of, not because of dina, not because of the ikar hadin, but because of marit ayin. So go read on.
What is this nun mem?
V'nafka mine.
ונפקא מיני, בגפני...
Nafka mine means like, and the nafka mina, right? The nafka from it, the practical implication.
בגפני דליקה למיחש למורית עין, כגון לרפואה וכיוצא בו.
In other words, if you need to cook for a sick person, then you don't have a din of maritime. So then you could.
וכמו שכתב מהרש"ל, פרק כל הבשר, סימן ק"ב, גבי חלב אישה דלרפואה, שרי אפילו, אין בו סכנה כלל. אוקיי? מאחר דאין בו איסור כלל, אלא משום מוריד עין. אוקיי. So with חלב אישה, it's okay because it's...
Right. I guess he's talking about chalav isha with chicken or something.
עד כאן לשון.
Ad kan l'shon, yeah. He's trying to come up with cases where you would have no din of marit ayin. Yeah, keep going.
הינמי, מי שכחד לה בגפני אחריני, דליקה משום מוריד עין, ובזה מיושב מה שהניר בתורת החטאת, דברי הרשב"א, בתימה, what is
עין שם.
אכן, דברי הפוסקים שכתבו סתמה מותרים בבישול, משמע דאפילו משום מוריד עין ליקה.
So now he's saying, what about those poskim that say it's mutar rabishul? Why didn't they say it's also rabishul because of maritime? Why did they say it's mutar rabishul? Seems to be a question now. They should have thought about this.
וכן נראים דברי מהרש"ל, פרק 20, כל הבשר. וכן משמע דעת המחבר, מדלא כתב בחלב בהמה טמאה גופיה דאסור משום מוריד עין. לכן נראה לי ברור דשני חתם, כיוון דעל כל פנים אחד מהן אסור באכילה. דוודאי בבישול לחודיה ליקה משום מוריד עין.
In other words, since you're doing something that is kind of is not going to be eaten because it's clearly an isser, if it's behemoth tamei or milk tamei, then there's no din of marit ayin because it doesn't look like you're going to cook this to eat it because it's clearly an isser. You know, it's clearly like isser meat, so it doesn't seem like you're preparing yourself food. It seems like you're preparing, you know, some kind of witch's brew. I don't know why you're cooking it, but you're cooking it not for eating. It's a little bit forced thought, I think. But anyway.
דוודא
יכול להיות, שמבשל לצורך רפואה. Because maybe it's not witch's brew, it's doctor's brew. And it's for refuah. And then there's no marit ayin. In other words, anybody looking at you with that piece of horse meat there, cooking it in milk, is going to know that you're cooking, that you're not doing an isser, because you're obviously not going to eat this thing unless it's for refuah, in which case you're allowed to eat anything. Oshar devarim. V'hai, go on.
והי אסור לבשל היינו לאכול, וכן מה שכתב המחבר בסעיף 5, אסור לבשלם, על כן צריך נמי,
על כרכך.
על כוכך צריך נמי לפחותו לאוכלם.
לפרשו, to explain it.
או לפרשו לאוכלם.
So he's saying that all those bits, when he's saying it's asur to cook, it really meant asur to eat.
וכולי גבנה מצינו במקרא ומשנה, ואף כלי לאכילה בלשון בישול, אין שם.
So now we're back to that topic again. That can it be that when you say asur levashel, you really mean asur to eat? And why are we saying that now? Why are we saying that now? Why are we saying that now? Because we want to say that it's mutter to cook them, really, right? What the Mechaber said. Did the Mechaber say it's asur to bashel? He didn't say it's asur bashel. Who said it's asur to bashel?
Didn't we say asur l'vashel in the beginning of the seed? And the Ramah, asur l'vashel.
You're saying it's the Mechaber here. Asur l'vashel b'chalav isha
and
means that actually it's mutter to bashel b'chalav isha. It's just asur to eat it afterward, unless it's for refuah. Is that what you're saying? Is that what he's saying?
That is what I think is.
I think you're probably right. That sounds right. In other words, we thought asur l'vashel was asur l'vashel because it looks like you're doing something bad. He's saying no. He's doing a little bit, I don't know, again, a little bit of convoluted thought. He's saying, no, if you're, it's only asur to eat it, because to cook it, why is it not marit ayin to cook it together?
Why? How can it be asur to eat it? It says, it's asur to prepare it, lechatchila, but that's,
so what's
can that be on the eating?
So help me out here. What is the shach saying?
No, I mean, I think it's complicated. He does seem to be saying that it comes from this kashya of, like, it seems like, and he brings in the fact of the of and the chalav, right? From the fact that, like, the mechaber just unqualifiedly seems to allow one, like, says the only problem with the of and chalav is eating, and so he seems to think that you can cook it and doesn't mention anything about maris ayin, right? And also the fact that the Ramah, when talking about the shkedim, doesn't say anything about maris ayin when cooking the oif and the milk, right?
No, we did. He said you have to put almonds there because la'niach meant bishul, right?
Right. No, but that's the whole point, right? That the Ramah thinks it's fine with presumably to cook the oif and the milk without even anything from maris ayin. That was the whole point of the Ramah.
The oaf, but not the behemoth.
Correct. But so as in part of why, like, part of the shach's difficulty is, like, why would it be maris ayin to cook, like, meat with the isha's milk, but why would it be completely uncomplicatedly fine to cook chicken with milk?
Wait, let me go back where.
That like part of his issue is like he thinks that like if this
Or
is
behemoth tamea. Behemoth tamea, he said, was uncomplicatedly. It was, as you said, was permitted to cook behemoth tamea with challah. And why is it not? Why is that a better case than chalavisha?
right, that he doesn't like the reason he feels like forced
And
to
he answered that. He said because by chalavisha, people might think you're gonna eat it even though you're not sick, because the two things are all mutter. But by the behemoth tamea, well, but then by the behemoth tamea or chicken,
the whole point is we're only concerned with the chalav isha because of the maras ayin. So you can't say that the maras ayin concern is that people think that you might eat it knowing that it's chalav isha. The whole point is that we have to assume they maybe don't know that it's chalav isha. But then he's saying, why don't we have that concern with these other cases? Why is this unique to the chalav isha case? We're talking about bishul.
and what's his answer?
His answer that is that referring to eating, which again is kind of difficult with the rest of the sieve. But
What's
like
referring to eating?
that when he
Here?
says like asor the he means lachol.
And actually, it's mutter to bashel because there's no isser of marit ayin on bishul because people will assume you're cooking for refuah or whatever. I thought he was trying to make a distinction. At dafka, where one of them is a forbidden thing, people will know that it's for refuah. But in this case, but in a case of, let's say, milk of a mother and chick and meat, so then since they're both mutter things, people won't know that you're cooking for refuah and will think that it's real milk. and it doesn't quite fit. It doesn't quite fit. All right, I think we'll leave that as a tzarich Ian. We got to stop here. We'll leave. I think we're gonna skip the eggs because next week we're doing Vav. We're starting next week. We're gonna do Vav to the end. That's gonna be Joel. All right, Yishkayach, thank you.
Yeah.
It's on a go.
Yeah.